Welcome to Titan HST's Business Continuity Today, hosted by Todd DeVoe, where planning meets reality.
Good morning, or good afternoon, depending on where you're at. And hey, we're going to be talking about a few things here today. And my name is Todd DeVoe, and I am the Director of Emergency Services for Titan HST. And I've been responding to emergencies and disasters since 1989. In addition to that, I also work as an educator at the post-secondary level. So learning and sharing what I learn is a passion for me. So welcome to Business Continuity Today, where together we will continue to learn. So today we're going to talk about developing your leadership plan, your personal leadership plan. And what is your leadership purpose? And the reason you have chosen to lead. And this is going to be the first of a series that is based upon the concepts in the Leadership Blueprint. Before we get into what we're talking about today, I just want to take a moment to discuss some of the stuff that's going on in the world with specifically leadership voids and stuff like that, or if you will. And what it is that we have seen some terrible things happening over the last few days or so, few weeks, I guess. And I just want to put my feelings, my heart, and my soul into saying I'm so sad about the lost life that we had at the end of this war here in Afghanistan. And the last casualties of the war happened on the last few days of us being in country, including the Afghan nationals that were killed. And it's just a terrible development. So my heart, mind, and soul goes out to the families of those that lost and those that are still dealing with the trauma of that last few days of the deployment. That being said, your leadership purpose, why you've chosen to lead. So leadership, there's always this idea, is leadership born or is it something that's developed? And I'm in the belief that you can actually develop leadership. I mean, if you go to most bookstores, there are leadership books, how-tos. You have books that are written by former leaders like General Mathis from the United States Marine Corps, or admirals and other Army officers have written books about leadership, leadership the Marine Corps way. Stephen Covey has written tons of books on leadership. Jim, oh my gosh, just lost his mind. I remember this. Jim Collins, wow, one of my favorite authors, has written a lot about leadership and what it means to lead organizations, right? So anytime there's an organization, anytime there's a group of people, right, leaders will emerge. Some are developed, and what does it mean to be leaders? So if you are looking to get promoted, or you have been promoted and you are in leadership, you really should know what your purpose is. And I would contend to say that the majority of leaders that are out there sort of muddle through it, right? No one has ever, well, I shouldn't say no one. There are very little groups of people who have taken junior leaders and put them through leadership programs necessarily, and taught them how to be leaders and really what their purpose is. They might have taught them systems for their organization, and they call that leadership training. They may have taught them the way of the organization, such as when I was working for American Medical Response, we went through what they called Leadership Academy, but that was more on like how they did things at American Medical Response, and how they wanted to see their organization go forward. So it wasn't really developing the individual, the leader of them. And so I was reading an article in Harvard Business Review, older article, talking about how you develop yourself as a leader. And I really think it's important, developing yourself. And that brought me into the book, The Leadership Blueprint, and taking some of the principles from there. I really wanted to delve into that and kind of develop what this means to be a leader in an organization. And I want to share this with business continuity and emergency management professionals, because as a professional in this field, we are leaders in various different levels, right? And whether you have the official title of being a manager or a director, or in a time of crisis, you come up and you are leading during crisis, this is really where you're needed. And so you really need to develop your purpose. Why have you chosen to go into this field? Why have you chosen to become a leader? And let's talk about this for a little bit here. Go into the first point here. How do you want to spend your leadership life? What's that mean? How do you want to spend your leadership life? If you go about let your ego go, right? Let your ego go of, oh, I'm the guy in charge. I get the little white hat or whatever you put on to be the leader. You've been designated as the leader. You got to let that ego go. We all have that ego. We do. But at the end of the day, leadership isn't about you. Leadership isn't about you individually. Leadership is about how others perceive you and how others can really understand what you need from them and how they can feel about going forward. I say this a lot about some of my leaders I followed in the past, right? Some of them, they were in charge of me, and I wouldn't want to follow them into, into the land of milk and honey, right? Some of them, because I don't felt that some of those people I don't think are the troops, the people, their best interest at hand. They had self-interest to go into that direction. There are some who I would follow into a burning pit of gas because I know that they have the best interest of the organization and us, the people, the troops, the guys following them at the hand. So you have to have that. Now, one of the things I like to do is the model that I've chosen for my personal stuff is the concept of servant leadership. And we can get into that later. I've done some other things on servant leadership, but I believe that's the best way, right? That you are looking at serving your troops, your people, the people that are working for you. What is it to the work that you feel called to do? Right? And some people really, it's amazing that they can go into a job, right, into an organization that you would think is, I don't want to say less than, right? That's very demeaning. But the idea of about a good example, right? There was a guy who I met, and he created a company. His entire company, what they did is they would go around and they would clean horse manure stalls, the stalls where the horses are going to the bathroom, right? And he started off as by himself. He was out of work guy, got a wheelbarrow and a shovel, and went down and knocked on doors into some of the horse properties to clean. And because of that, he was able to create a company out of this and hire people and have trucks that'll go out and clean these stalls, put fresh stuff out. And I thought it was kind of an amazing story, And do you say and wake up in the morning and go, I want to be the horse manure cleaner guy? Probably not, right? But however, when he got into that job and felt that calling to do so, to help other people in that really niched job, right? He created this thing and created this right role. And so the meaning is you could be working for a Fortune 50 company, right? And it might not be a fit for you, right? And you might not feel good about being there. You hear people all the time that have quit these like high profile, high paid jobs to go work as an artist or to go work at a small craft beer place or to go create wine or do other things that are more creative that they feel right. So are you in the right role? Not is this the right job for you, right? Are you in that right role? Are you getting stuff out of it? Are you part of the right team? You could go get a great job again and the team just isn't your fit. You hear this all the time in sports, right? You get a guy who was terrible at one role, as I say, quarterback, right? Because that's the high profile job. On one team, they trade him or he quits or not quits, but asks for a trade or whatever the deal is, gets cut on waivers, goes to another team and becomes great on that team. Are you in a job or an organization that you love? Or it kind of goes back to the first portion of it, the right role. But do you really love what you do? Because if you don't love what you do, how can you expect to lead people into on that thing? Whether it's being a manager at a fast food restaurant or leading, a Fortune 500 company, like I said before. What is your dream? When you get up in the morning, what are you like living for? What is your fullest life? Right. And if you can make sure that you are in this position with your fullest life, you're in the right position. And it's really important to understand that because if you are in a position that you don't feel is your fullest life, how are you expected to lead people? How are people going to want to follow you into your daily job? Right. And as emergency managers, right, and as business continuity managers, right, if we are not feeling our fullest life when a crisis occurs, it's going to come out. Right. Crises don't make people. right? It's an old saying, right? Crisis make people. I don't believe crisis make people. I think what a crisis does is actually brings the best out of us or the worst out of us, right? And it will reflect. So if you're not there in a position that you love what you're doing, right, it's going to be hard for you to do this. If there is, what do you want more, right? What do you want more of, right? How do you put that love that you have for your job out to other people? Can you walk away from comfort of truly becoming who you want to be, right? Have you really got to the point to where you're at? If not, who do you need to speak to be able to get to that point to where you really who you want to be? Because you cannot lead. You cannot lead. You cannot lead. It is impossible if you're not true to yourself first. I truly mean that. I believe that. So I teach all the time, right? What gifts and interests do you have that you can make the world a better place? You know, I see just to my children, right? Is what can you do to make the world a better place every day, right? What can you do to as you go forward? If it's small things or large things, it doesn't have to be massive things, right? You know, what is your goal every day? Leave the world in a better place. I guess I learned that when I was in the Boy Scouts, right? When you go hiking and camping and whatnot, you always want to improve every place that you go to, right? And so I really, it sounds squishy, right? It does, but I think it's true. If we can really work to leave the organization that you're at better when you leave it, I think I think it's important. You know, and sometimes there are things that you do that don't get noticed. That's okay, right? Doing the right thing doesn't have to be noticed. You don't have to be pat on the back every time that you do the right thing. You know, I left a good paying job because I was really getting physically ill for being there. I started to sabotage myself when I was there. I hated going there. I hated going to work every morning. And when I walked into my office and I gave the resignation letter to my boss, it was this huge relief off my chest. Right, it felt great. And yeah, and you know, I took a financial hit for doing this. I had to buckle down on some things, but over the years, I came back from that resignation from a position I hated. I just was felt terrible being there. I actually improved my relationship with my wife when I left. All these things happened, right? From just leaving a position where I felt just not able to move forward. And I think it's important for you to be able to do this too, is if you know when you need to walk away. And what does that have to do with improving the world? I couldn't improve the world every day when I was there. I couldn't improve myself every day when I was there. And so I went to a position and I went up into, and that's when I got into higher education. And I believe that was a great step for me personally. And, you know, and then goes in, what does improving the world look like to you? It doesn't have to be the same for you. It is for me, right? Our idea of what improving the world is doesn't have to be this grandiose thing that everybody's moving in the same direction and this single-minded idea of what improving the world is. For some, it's doing beach cleanups on the weekends, and for some, it's you know, helping children learn how to read or something along those lines. For some, it's just making yourself improve better internally every day, right? One of the things that I this is simple, right? I've taught my kids to always put the cart at the grocery store into one of those cart things. And at the end of the day, it goes, oh, you know, what does that really make a difference? You can put it with other carts on the side of in the parking lots or whatever. But just that simple act of doing at least one of myself doing that, I feel that's one of those things that you can improve the world just a little bit on an everyday basis when you go out and do this. What is your quest? Each of us has a quest, right? Each of us has this idea where we're going forward to do something that we want to do. So for some, it's fame and wealth, right? For others, it's just respect. Or for some, it's just having people remember what you did. You know, if you know what your quest is and stay true to what you want, you know, for me, it's critical that my family knows that I've done everything I could do possibly going forward. And when I leave, that they have a good quality of life left behind for them. What inspires you? For me, it's hard work, right? And not necessarily like unnecessary hard work. I love the story of the person who puts the work, like the guy who created his business of cleaning horse stalls out of just going with a shovel and a wheelbarrow, going door to door, right? Now, that hard work doesn't guarantee anything. However, I can tell you that if you don't put the work in, you guarantee to fail, right? And I just those stories inspire me all the time. What are you working towards? Well, you know, again, right here, I have my buddy Brian here to really lean back onto because him and I were a sounding board for each other. And we talk about writing goals down and looking at them and holding each other accountable for writing those down. And I have a whiteboard and I have a notebook. I write down my goals. And every week at the end of the week, I do a time where I take a look at those goals to see if I'm moving the ball forward on them. And you know what? When things start to go awry for me, it's when I realize I haven't really taken the time to write my weekly goals down and to take a look at them at the end of the week. Right. And so they don't have to be 10, 15 different goals. You can do 2 or 3 goals for that week and really hold yourself accountable and have that other person that you can talk to hold you accountable for making those goals come to light. What are the 2 to 5 things that you want somebody to say in your eulogy? I love that question. There's a story called The Dash. It's a poem, and it's about how the dash between the dates is what your life is remembered by. And so it's what did you do in that dash really makes a difference. And when you stand there and people are putting you into the ground, if you will, people always say nice things about you, right? Because it's a polite thing to do, right? But what did you do in that time between your day of your birth and the date of your death that inspired people? And that people walk away from and going, this is what this guy did or gal did. I think it's important to understand what your life is between that dash, or on the dash, I suppose. And that goes back to, what legacy do you want to leave? What do you want to leave behind? And I told people, I don't care if people remember my name, right? I mean, I'm not going to be in the history books. Okay. It's just like, so it is, right? Not everybody makes it there. But there are plenty of people that are in the history of our nation, all right, and of the world that did things that stand today. Think about the Romans that created the roads that are still standing today, the engineers that created them. We don't know their names, but we see their work. And that's what I would like to see for my legacy, is the work that stays behind. People can forget who I am. That doesn't make a difference to me. But the idea is, like, did we make something that was a foundational piece that thousands of years from now will still be standing, or at least hundreds of years from now, or maybe 50 years from now for that. But is it something that when you left your work, did it stay standing behind? Were you able to create that organization and people moving forward with what you did in the past? For me, a sign of a good leader isn't that when you leave an organization that the organization fails. For me, the sign of a good leader is like after you create this organization and build it up, when you leave, it still stays standing. And that's a testament to a true leader, I believe. Right. And that goes into the idea of what you're doing specifically to help others. Next week, we're going to talk about leadership, your leadership beliefs, the thinking that governs your approach to influencing others. And I hope that you join us for that. So thank you for being with us today, and visit Titan HST for all your communication needs. And remember to follow us on your favorite podcast player. And you know what? Also, follow us here on LinkedIn. Go down there, follow us, see what's going on, so that way we can catch us live every time that we do it. Until then, stay safe and stay hydrated.